Good morning, everyone. Or I guess it's afternoon in some parts of the world and evening elsewhere, but it's great to have you join me today. You got to be asking, what's the stiff upper lip thing? And we'll get into that in a minute, but allow me to just kind of get us oriented. First, as we go through this, I want you to understand that this will be simple things you can do after a little bit of discussion. And I feel that it's going to play nicely off of, if you just heard Ruby's talk before, it gives you some good simple techniques to employ what they were discussing on that one. And afterwards, we'll have a short question and answer, and you can use the question and answer feature if you're kind of new to Zoom. Down at the bottom of your screen, if you scroll over the question and answer, you'll see Q&A pop up, and that's where you can ask a question. You can ask a question at any point, but I'm really going to go through the exercise first, and then we'll address those at the end. So with that said, I just want to give you a little context about who this guy is you've tuned into, and that starts off with the most basic thing. I am the son of Mary Taylor, a little old 88-year-old lady in Freeport, Illinois, who texted me during dinner last night to find out how she was going to tune in to see her son. So hi, Mom. Thanks for getting me here. All right. So I'm out here in Iowa City, Iowa, the center of the United States, and I've made a career of treating people with chronic and complex pain. Out of that, I had to learn how to make it functional and useful, both here in the Midwest and also down in the Southwest. And so that's what we're going to do, is just go through some of the things that through the years of my patients teaching me, these ended up being simple things for them to do. And the key part about what we're going to share is, while it's simple, it's really, really powerful, because it takes advantage of the number of breaths we have through the day. And through a day, we typically would have around 20,000 breaths. Maybe in the current crisis situation, we have a few more, as that will elevate your breath rate. So when we go through these, it's disarmingly simple, but I think you're going to find that it's powerful, and I know my patients reported back that it was. In addition to that, in this era, it's also cheap/free. You get to use it whenever you want. It's portable. It always goes with you. And so it's easy to access at any time, middle of the night, middle of the day, but also it's non-allergenic. So, hey, we've got everything covered, right? So what I'd like to do then is tell you a little story, and we'll start with the story for about 10 minutes. And then after the story, we'll apply it. You'll get to practice it for yourself. So let me switch to share screen here, and we'll invoke the technology gods to arrive and do what they promised to do. So let's see here. And I'll pull myself over here on the side. There we go. Great. So what we're going to talk about is, I call it the 3 diaphragms. So don't worry about the details, because I've got this all recorded up at that URL at the top, 3diaphragms.com. But it's a story about how human beings are put together, and how you're put together, most importantly. And it gives us a lot of power. So in this state of uncertainty, the state of total and almost complete change for so many of us, it's nice to be able to touch back to something that's still there. And the good news is, this is very much still there. So let's go through the story of who you are as a human. We know that you're this collection of about 206 bones and over 650 different muscles. And somehow you have to be able to stand up, hopefully, or at least have some sort of a posture, depending on your mobility level. But within that, you also have to have some flexibility to pull your socks on, trim your toenails, those sorts of things. And how that happens, that stability or that control, has long been, or more recently been, described as the result of a strong core. This is the first bit of good news. Turns out it's not true. We can all relax and let our stomachs go soft. So let that drop down, because what we know is, like everything else we're learning in life, it's way more complex than that. So what we're going to talk about is a set of relationships between 3 areas in the human body. And we'll walk through those. And I always use the analogy with most patients, they were comfortable with it. If you think of these three areas of the human body as three members of a rock band, okay? And it's our old rock band from the 70s. Maybe since we're hosted out of the UK, we'll call it a power trio, like Cream or somebody like that. But these three have to play well and coordinated in order for the band to sound good or for you to feel good. And what very often happens based on a lot of different factors is one or more members of the band is not in sync or not present or hungover or, you know, who knows what. So our job is going to be to discover these three band members in ourselves and then tune them up and get them to go out on the road one more time. So that's going to be our daily practice. And so the first band member we'll look at is, well, I forgot that I'd added this in. This kind of shows you the relationship. And so we're going to talk about this old Rube Goldberg cartoon, the idea of one thing affects another, and affects another. And certainly we see that in the systems effect of the current COVID-19 situation. So let's bring our band members out. The first one's your respiratory diaphragm, goes all the way across the bottom of your rib cage. So however you're sitting there laying right now, just go ahead and take a little bigger breath in and get that sense of something filling up in your belly. And towards the end of the in-breath, it kind of fills up in the chest. So what's happening, of course, is there's not air going into your belly per se, but as that diaphragm comes down, it increases the pressure within your abdominal cavity, and it increases it both up and down, but also side to side. So it gives stability. And this is the stability versus clenching your low back, clenching your abdominal muscles. And again, keep it simple. Well, I had a beer can in my clinic, and I had an empty one and a full one. And so if you think of yourself as a beer can or a pop can, if you need to, what gives that can stability? It's not the aluminum on the sides, it's the pressure within. And as soon as you open that can and reduce that pressure, now you've lost stability and the can is malleable and changeable. Same thing in our human body. But if all that pressure came in and there wasn't anything on the bottom, we'd be in real trouble. So on the stage comes the second band member, and that's your pelvic floor, the muscles across the base of the pelvis. And if you're seated, that's what you're sitting on. And so those two have to play together. So as the diaphragm pushes down, the pelvic floor gives a little bit. And then as we breathe out, it moves back and forth like this in an ideal situation. And this is the primary driver of breathing. But we also have, luckily, a backup system. And that backup system is up here in the throat and the neck. We'll call that the thoracic outlet, the top of your thorax. These muscles are backup muscles. So you ran up the hill, you put your hands on your thighs, and or after you're trying to catch your breath, you're using these to lift the ribs to ventilate yourself as well. It works, but it's not very efficient, and we'll see in a minute why it's not an optimal way to breathe. So again, I said at the beginning, this is the law of large numbers. You breathe roughly 12 to 15 times a minute, 900 times an hour, 17 to 20,000 times a day. So if we make a little change in these, even for a half hour, we're going to affect hundreds of repetitions. And these repetitions are key because we know now that if you breathe from the respiratory diaphragm, that invokes the relaxation or the healthier regenerative response in a crisis state like we're in. If you breathe from the neck or the throat, that generates a fight or flight or preparation crisis mode, which is tougher on our system. And so let's look at exactly how that works. And so we bring up a little chart here, and what we see is when we're breathing from the throat and neck, or when we have tension in this band member up here, it tends to hog the stage, and this band member doesn't get to dance with the one down here. And so that would be this top column, the stress column. And again, all of this is in the 3diaphragms.com video, so don't worry about that. But basically, we know when we breathe from the neck or throat, we're going to generate, it's going to be harder to sustain mood. So more anxiety, more depression. It makes pain worse. So it ups pain, it ups the inflammatory response we have. And the key, of course, right now is it's over a long period of time, it diminishes our immune response, and that's certainly a big one for us. So it also decreases our balance, increases muscle tone, and there, he went away. I didn't know you could sideswipe. Okay. And it affects our ability to digest. We don't digest well. We breathe even more from the neck, so it makes this big cycle, just like we see the cycle of the virus cases go up. This is a positive feedback loop that makes us breathe even more from the neck and the shoulders. And then, of course, that disrupts our sleep further, and it actually inhibits our ability to think clearly. So we got all those negatives, but the good news is if we can position ourselves or become aware and make some changes in the structure, we can switch to the other, which is all the opposite effects. So enhanced mood, less pain, less inflammation, more robust immunity. We breathe better, the belly works better, all those sorts of things. All right, let's see. So the next step, and we'll just call that mind for lack of a better word, all those effects are the regulators on our system, and the structure down here is the body. But if we're going to talk also about the spirit or the story of who we are as humans, that story is being edited for almost every one of us right now in this virus. Who are we? What's important? What do I live for? What has meaning? All those sorts of things. And it turns out there's a conversation up in the brain that goes on between your executive function, or we'll call it it's called the dorsal prefrontal cortex, or the old lizard brain. And this conversation between these two, this one's the rational, calm one. We'll all figure this out. We've got a good government. We've got a good healthcare system, all those sorts of things. And the lizard brain's going, I'm not sure this is all going to work out. Look at the news and blah, 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 blah. So they go back and forth, and all of this then generates a conversation. And again, this conversation further feeds into the mind. So the story or the spirit feeds into the mind. Okay. And if it feeds in the lizard story, we start doing all these, what we would call negative things at this point, that destabilizes the structure, which makes that stronger. And so we can see how story affects mind, affects body, but also the alignment of the body. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of our time with. Now, what we're going to talk about are what are known as motor presets. Okay. And these motor presets are fascinating in that our brain's always guessing what's best for us or what's next for us. And so probably the most iconic one around the globe even now would be this old motor preset, Michael Jordan with the tongue out. It's a habit. It's a thing we do automatically in a situation or in a state. And so obviously he's in a high performance, high concentration state here, right? And so he had this physical response. Well, you're doing it right now, and you did it this morning when you got out of bed, and you'll do it all day long. You have your motor presets. Again, paying homage to the real football, soccer. So many of you are familiar with this. Look at the pre-motor set of this goalie. The free kick hasn't even started, and look his expression. He's already adapted or moving, but hopefully in time not to give it away to the kicker. But this is all part of what we do. And so as we go through these examples now, this is the basic how-to. It's one, I'm going to invite you to notice your position. Then I'm going to have you notice how you're breathing or what your breath pattern is in that position. And then we'll make a choice to stay or we'll experiment with a change. So pretty simple stuff. I'm going to have you notice what position you are, where your bones are. And then 2, notice your breathing pattern. And 3, make a choice to stay or change. Okay, so I'm going to take just a second. The slides didn't change. The slides didn't change. Well, that's a disappointment. I will make that available afterwards. So for now, let's go into the experience part of it. And what we'll do is, this is a good stress tester, right? I will put something up after the talk. I'm typing in the, it'll be a half hour or so afterwards. Oops, of course I typed it wrong. So that's yoga therapy. So let me put it in again. Thanks for your patience. So it's fun to watch how my nervous system's working right now. There it is. So I will put the PowerPoint up there so you can see all the slides. And again, the 3diaphragms.com is the whole talk again too. So my apologies for the technical issue. So back to this. I just have to get my notes up here. Okay, so the first one, the first exercise we're going to do is the stiff upper lip. So one, notice your position, notice where you are right now. Notice your breathing pattern, how big is your breath, how fast is it? Don't change it, just notice it. Okay. And then we're going to try something on. And what I want you to do is kind of stiffen your lip, get that stiff upper lip like you need to cry, but you know you shouldn't right now, or you need to giggle and you know you shouldn't. Stiffen that upper lip and notice what happens to your breath. And then release that stiff upper lip. Does the breath change? Try it again. And so the stiff upper lip, of course, is an old British terminology for staying the course, not wavering, being strong. And the opposite would be a wavering lip or a quivering lip as a sign of weakness. But this state of concentration often affects our mouth. And so we either stiffen our upper lip or we might push our tongue against our teeth or the roof of the mouth, both of which tighten up that top diaphragm up here in the throat. And when we do that, then we slip into that whole line of negative outcomes that way. Okay. And so try it again, stiffen that upper lip, and then check the breath as you hold that upper lip. You're not going to cry. You're not going to giggle, right? And then as soon as you let it go, watch what happens to your breath when you soften the upper lip. Yeah. And we're going to go through several of these. So if the first one doesn't work for you, let's play with a couple of other ones. And we'll use one more British expression, which would be don't get your knickers in a knot. So mine were just in a knot just a second ago when I realized that the slides didn't work. So my choice then was to hold my knickers up in a knot, which would be that pelvic floor, the bottom one across the base of my pelvis. And if I tighten the pelvic floor, then the diaphragm is pushing against a solid structure and it doesn't have that even flow or movement there. And if we lose that rhythm, if the band can't do that, then we have to go up and breathe from the throat, which again throws us into the whole fight or flight. So let's try this once. Go ahead and just kind of tuck up your tailbone, kind of squeeze the base of your bottom just a little bit like you're anticipating something or you're not sure what's going to happen. Notice what the breath does. And then as soon as you let that go, as soon as you let your knickers relax back, let your pelvic floor drop down, what happens? Do it again. Tighten up. Where'd the breath go? Relax. Where'd the breath go? So you start to feel as once you let go of the tightened pelvic floor, then it can start to move and the diaphragm starts to move and you go into that healthier, positive list of outcomes that we had on the other side. Now, when you do that, let's try it once more, but let's put them together. So go ahead and tighten those knickers up, bunch them up a bit, and hold that stiff upper lip. Can you even breathe? Okay, so you feel that stage of protecting yourself or tightening or anticipation, and it cuts the breath off, puts us into that sympathetic or fight or flight state. And then that, of course, has the negative effects to include fatiguing or wearing out our ability to respond from an immune state. Okay, so we've got those two. Now let's try another one. Sitting, if you have a tablet or you've got a phone in your hand that you're holding right now, go ahead and set that down and notice how you're breathing. So notice the pattern of the breath, the size of the breath. Good. And then go ahead and either literally pick up your phone or pick up a tablet and hold it with both hands to observe. And if you don't have one, imagine you have one. It even works. So pick up your imaginary one and put your hands out in front of you and hold that tablet. Okay, you got it? What happened to the tension through your neck and your throat, but also what happened to your breath? Okay. And if you happen to be sitting on a couch or whatever, grab a pillow, pull it under, and let that tablet rest on the pillow instead of holding it up with your arms and your shoulders. Or in your imagination, release the hands, set the hands back down, and notice how that breath pattern changes again. And so if you just sit there and watch a simple little 15-minute TED Talk, that's 15 minutes or 1/4 of 900 repetitions that you just did, that is either going to feed and nourish you in a regenerative, healthy level of your autonomic nervous system, your mind, or it's going to feed in and further exhaust you, wear you out, use precious resources that you want to be preserving right now. And so we start to see how important what we do with our hands affects that top band member. And if that top band member gets the stage, the other two don't get to participate. And then we lapse into that. So I hope that makes sense. All right. And then go ahead and sit at your imaginary desk, or if you're at a desk, and put your hands up on the desk as though you're at a keyboard. Okay, got that? And then nice and easy, let your bottom slip forward a little bit. Let your chest collapse just a little bit. So you've been there for about an hour. And notice what happened to your breath when you let yourself come down onto your tailbone by collapsing, by making a kind of a C structure there. So you feel how that starts to right away changes your ability to breathe. And where is the breath coming and where is it located? It tends to move up, and there's more tension in the neck and throat. Okay, so you're starting to see how this keeps happening. And so now, instead of 15 minutes on a TED Talk, you've got a nice 90-minute Netflix that you're watching on the screen, or you're enduring a meeting, or watching some guy from Iowa City that can't work the technology try and teach you something, any of those kind of things. But you do that for 45 minutes. Now you're up to over 700 repetitions. If you do it for an hour and a half, you're at 1,314 repetitions of either nurturing or exhausting your nervous system. So go ahead and scoot back, even at your imaginary desk if you got one. Get on your sitting bones and come just a little bit forward so you're sitting up onto the closest part of your thighs as well. And then soften your shoulders and watch what happens now to your breath. Where is it located? How big is it? Has the tension changed in the neck and throat? And can you feel the difference, the quality difference, that just moving the body shifts the breathing, which shifts the mind, which tends to be a little quieter, a little less strained. And then move right back, slide back down on your tailbone, let the chest drop in just a little bit. Where'd the breath go? Doesn't it almost feel like it's hard to take a breath at this point? Okay, so it's not about sitting rigidly, but it's about getting off the tailbone and just letting the bones stack. And so in the States where I practiced, what I would teach people is rather than sit at military attention, because if you do that, go ahead and come to attention. Again, holds the breath, the bracing crunches the can, and you can't breathe. Okay, so what do they do in the military? They call them to parade rest or at ease, which is this middle point. So it's not collapsed and it's not at attention, it's that middle point. Okay, so as you sit in that middle point, you are affecting your nervous system, which is either then, if it's in a positive state, building up your resources or depleting your resources. Okay, so we literally, by moving the structure, can't breathe, kind of hard to breathe up here too, all right? Bring it into the middle, okay? And so what I would tell people in the States, because it's a familiar image to us, is to sit like Abe. It's Abe Lincoln, whose monument is in DC. He sits on that big old chair and he's got his arms out, his hands at ease. And this is important, particularly for the women, because most of our cultures have enculturated us to keep the legs together and tight. Well, as long as it's socially appropriate in the environment you're in, I'm gonna encourage you to man sit a little bit, okay? So let the thighs drop apart a little bit. Knees soft, not clenching, okay? And feel how in that position, you can have a nice smooth rhythm of the three band members making good music versus somebody dominating and the others just kind of still, and then therefore feeding into the negative level. Okay. So that's, sit like Abe. Then the next thing that's really important to understand is our hands, separates us from all the other animal species that we know, particularly the ability, of course, to bring the thumb over, but it takes a huge part of our nervous system to run the hand. And so what we do with our hands drives that very much. And so what I invite you to do right now is just take your hands, and if you're seated or standing, I want you to just kind of cock them out like you're ready to go. So put them down on your lap and just kind of pull your pinkies to the outside in kind of a ready, set, almost like a runner to your mark. And again, watch, what does that do to your breath when you pull those pinkies out? And then if you let those pinkies slide in and maybe even let the hands turn over so it's a little bit of palms up, what happens up here? What happens to your breath? So again, kind of lizard's hands, cock those hands, ready to roll, ready to run, ready to sprint. Breath locks down. Soften those hands, soft kitten paws. Notice how the breath operates. And then another favorite one of so many people and so many patients that I have is to bring a hand into a fist. You're ready, almost literally white knuckling, and you kind of turn that arm in and hold it like that. That may be a habit some of you have. So just see what happens. Go ahead and turn one arm in, kind of you're poised, you're ready to go, but feel what happens to the tension here and how that limits your breathing. And then relax it and notice what happens from there. So back and forth, try the other side. And so here's a good example of our list of the autonomic nervous system. A little more sympathetic dominant here, dries you out, okay, normal. Good, so we've got that one. And then let's talk about visual dieting, that is what you consume, okay? So I want you in the position you're in. Right now you're consuming hopefully something that's fairly neutral and been worth your time. But then what I want you to do is imagine and watch what your breath does when you image this. Imagine you're watching one of those real scary slasher movies where the poor babysitter's hiding in the closet and the bad guy's walking into the bedroom, right? Go ahead and do that and watch what happens as your brain runs that little film clip. So you're consuming an image, watching your favorite crime detective, nasty murder thing or whatever, right? So notice how what's coming in affects your ability to breathe, right? And then switch the channel. Of course, that's how old I am. We don't do that anymore. Switch the channel and turn it to a wonderful documentary about the baby otters playing along the river. Okay. And run that one for a moment. What's the breath doing? Where is it located? Does the physical position of your body shift just a little bit with that show? And then hit last or back channel to the scary one. See that scary one. Hear the sounds. They always put that breathing in there so you can hear it and you can breathe just like them, right? Okay. So it's the same effect. It's not big, but again, it's so many breaths, 12 to 15 breaths a minute. You watch a 90-minute or 2-hour show, that's thousands of repetitions that are either nurturing or depleting your system. Okay. Let's see. I think those are the particular examples I had. Yeah, that's it. So what I'll do is, so I don't forget at the end, I want to be sure and thank our incredible team that's put this thing together literally around the world and in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. Okay, so thank you, teammates. And I also want to thank you. And this show is going to be archived on our YouTube channel, so you can share if you found some value in this, or you just want to review that plus the PDF I'll have up so you can actually see the slides again. That'll be on the YouTube channel. And the other thing we decided was it would be nice if, because we're offering all this for free and no one's getting paid, but we also have an opportunity on the website, healthflix, FLIX.online. We have a spot where you can make a donation to the Doctors Without Borders. We try to identify a more global organization that's really in need of cash at this point. And so if you feel so inclined, go ahead and make a contribution there. So let me take a look at my questions here. Just gotta pull this over. Sounds not great. Screens are frozen. Slides aren't changing. Okay, don't have any questions at this point. Just trying to alert me to the technical problems. If you have a question, you can either chat it in the chat function at the bottom or in the question and answers. And again, this to be able to see the slides, to be able to see the whole description, that's at the number 3 diaphragms.com. Okay. All right. So did you notice what I just did? Okay. How I moved my mouth, held my chin, so I stiffened my bottom lip because I'm concentrating, trying to make sure there's questions. Of course, the lizard brain's going, why isn't anybody asking any questions? And the executive mind says, well, pay attention and make sure you don't miss a question. But the lizard brain goes, no, they probably didn't like it. Nobody's got any questions. And the executive brain tries to calm the lizard brain and say, oh, no, you made it so clear and everybody understands. Lakshmi, you're the best. Thank you. So what I'd like to invite you to do is know that I'm available for other questions that you might have. Happy to support you any way you might need. I have lots of resources, lots of people I can connect you with if you need more information. You can reach me at my website, which is matthewtjtaylor.com. And I'm out here in Iowa doing all sorts of different things, but the big thing I like to do is get people connected and bring them along. So let's see. Oh, Matt's got a question. Could you sit in nurturing replaying positions whilst in stressful? Great question, Matt. So the question is, and that's twofold, actually. There's two parts to the question. Can you sit in neutral and take in something stressful, whether it's artificial like a television program or an argument between your relatives because you're all stuck in the same house now for 2 weeks, right? Can you do that? And the question, and I would state that you can, but it takes practice. And the practice is noticing. That's the 3 steps we did. Notice where you are. Oh, I've locked my breath up because it drives me nuts when my mom and my sister go at it, right? How am I breathing? And then can I soften or can I release whatever that preset tongue out, whatever that pattern is you have, but you have to identify that. And so it's a skill. And you might have to keep going back to it over and over and over. That's the practice. It's a simple practice, but it's yours. It's very uniquely how you stick your tongue out as you're going for the layup. And that's the value of this, is you discover your own pattern. And then the same, what I meant by 2 parts is if you set back and sit on your tailbone and block it, can you still maintain equanimity or a balanced, healthier point? And I would say again, yes, you can when you've practiced and attained that. And that's why there's like 84,000 yoga postures. That's the point, is you learn to adapt that, but it won't be your automatic. You'll default to the other one. But those are just great practice. You notice yourself down there. Can you soften and can you let your shoulders drop and even be in that bad posture and breathe well? So great question, Matt. Thank you. Okay. Louise wants to know, are there ways to release each diaphragm? Yes, there are. My argument, the name of my company is My Rehab LLC. And so it's my job to rehab or make fit to live in. That's what rehab means. So our culture has taught us as good consumers to go out and find something to fix me, right? But what the mind-body practices, which is the emphasis of this Health Flicks, is that yes, but with attention and practice, you can do much of the releasing on your own, but it takes paying attention. Okay, if you go back to what they just talked about in Ruby's talk, go back and listen to Ruby and Jamie's talk. It's incredible. But we have to first pay attention to where we are and then make choices and practice, and we repeat it over and over. But oftentimes, of course, then there are manual techniques, there's energetic techniques, there are all sorts of other things. But I encourage people to first see if you can literally find ways to get each of those levels to move with more freedom or more space. Okay, so try that once. Great question, Louise. Lakshmi, any suggestions to actually stiffen your upper lip? On how to actually stiffen your upper? I don't seem to have an access to that part of my body. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the next time you have to sneeze, because now it's socially terrible, right? Or cough, or just right now, try and simulate, blocking this. You're in the line at the grocery store and all of a sudden you have to cough. What are you going to do? Okay. So think of those types of things where you have to brace. The other thing I would suggest, because I know Lakshmi's quite a yogin, is a lot of the Sanskrit sounds and facial, particularly the M of Om. Just can you feel the teeth vibrate, the lips, the tongue, and that sort of thing? So you enhance your sensory map that way. So I hope that helps, Lakshmi. Doesn't contracting any of your muscles have the same effect? That's Samantha. Thank you, Samantha. Yes, we have to contract our muscles. So I'm not saying contracting your muscles is wrong, but I'm saying identify when it's a habit or a preset that isn't serving you, okay? So think of the Wimbledon, if you're in the UK or a tennis fan somewhere around the world. What happens when they go to serve, okay? On that serve, is it silent? Or do you hear that, right? That is the power generated. So we want to have power. We want our respiratory diaphragm to be very strong. When the power lifter lifts up the bar, it's the same thing. It's and they tighten all 3 diaphragms because that gives us incredible momentary stability of the beer can. Okay, so contracting is not bad. It's contracting without awareness and without intention. That's what we're trying to do, is identify that pattern that that isn't serving us, and that we're sustaining and actually, bleeding the battery bars out of our personal phone, right? We're getting down there to the blinking red bar, okay? Let's see, anonymous attendee, let's see. Is there a way we can learn to better regulate our even during those times of tension and anxiety? Great question. Look at the schedule. We have a number of people doing really powerful breath work. And I know yesterday when Heather on the opening one, go to the YouTube channel, which is, if you just go to YouTube and then search Health Flix, F-L-I-X, it'll come up, and take a look at hers. Michael did an amazing job, Michael Lee, the second one, but I know in our roster, we have a number of people giving really great breath work. So look for that. Thanks. That's a good question. Matt asked, do you have any face or throat relaxing techniques? Yes, there are a number of them, and probably the simplest one is okay. So the glottis, it's a muscular fold that controls the flow of air, and that's in our larynx, how we speak, right? And so if I tighten that glottis, that's part of that thoracic outlet. To maximally relax in and open it is the sound And think about it, when you've been working on something, you press send and it's done and it's a big project, what do? You go, right? That opens and softens it. And so a lot of the chanting, I don't remember that we have somebody doing chanting, but I'm sure several people will. It is a great way to learn to control that. And probably the best example of how much control we have is Google Mel Blanc, the person that did Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd and all those. Mel Blanc vocal cords. And it turns out they ran an endoscope down there and took a video of it, Matt. And just to see how it's like a guitarist tuning the guitar strings. They either pull real tight for a high sound or they soften for the bass sound. But just to get a sense of that range, and then just to run that range from making if you do that and kind of go through the scales, you can also begin to develop that skill. So great question. Gargling, would that help relax the throat? Might. It'll, as you gargle, if you're not swallowing, that'll teach you how to tighten it. Okay. And then when you relax or spit, you'll feel the throat open up. Okay. All right. Well, that takes us to 10:43. Thanks. My apologies again for that, but I will, in the next 20 minutes or so, have that link will be live for yogatherapy.com/lip.pdf. And that'll have my whole slide deck there. It's only 3 slides. And I'll also put a Dropbox link on there as I'm thinking about it, because that will take you to so that you can see the mechanics of it. But again, like I said, 3diaphragms.com is me doing it on a legal pad like I did for hundreds of patients for 15 years. That's all right there for you too. So thanks so much. Be safe. Check in on the rest of the programming that we have, and be sure and share with your friends, because we've got a whole week and a half more of incredible programming. So thanks very much, and stay safe, stay healthy, and let that chin soften, and take care of yourself. Thank you.